I'm here to speak on items PH3 and RE8, both sponsored by the mayor, who again is not here, who's asking the city to grant some form of preferential treatment. So in light of the recent revelations in the Miami Herald that the mayor has been secretly paid to push the agenda of private special interests in the city, I would ask that the commission not move forward on any item sponsored by the mayor that provides special benefits, financial or otherwise, until such time as the mayor appears before this commission and the public to represent that he has no private business arrangements with any of the entities or individuals involved in each and every item. The commission should actually require the mayor to sign an affidavit under the penalty of perjury for each of his items on every agenda, explicitly stating that he's not being personally paid to lobby the city. I also want to speak on the disorderly conduct item. I think it's way too broad. I think it's an assault on free speech. And also, I do want to say, I think Commissioner Joe Carollo should resign. I think you're a criminal, and shame on you. Thank you.
Welcome back to Why Are We Like This, the podcast that treats Florida like the active crime scene it is. I'm your host, David Quinones. We are live. We're in person. I love this shit, man. We're in the studio. I'm shoulder to shoulder for the first time in like what feels like forever with my homie, co-host, Tomas Kennedy. Hello, Tomas.
Hey, how are you all?
Doing well.
And we're all getting COVID right now.
Yeah.
While Tomas and I are live in studio, we are also joined in virtual space by our other co-hosts, zooming in from the desiccated sepia wasteland that is New York, the Furiosa, to my immortan Joe, right. Gerald Doherty. Jerry, what's up, man?
I'm good. It's not orange anymore, and any day you can say that is a good one, man. Witness me!
So, I don't want to belabor introductions because our guest today is an old friend, returning champion, and I even wrote this shit down, not known for staying quiet in the studio before being formally introduced. So let's just dispatch with the formalities. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't know who Billy Corben is, I don't know what to tell you, man. Go hit up Wikipedia. Google is your friend. Billy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, sir. And for those of you listening and not watching, you cannot see the t-shirt magic happening in this room right now.
A lot of t-shirt magic.
Billy's wearing an FTX Miami shirt.
I am, an FTX Miami shirt. You're wearing a Miami. I get mine every morning, the Miami Herald.
This is a reproduced through my own Photoshop via TeePublic skills, a 1984 Miami Herald sales team pep rally t-shirt that they used to get the back when the Herald was a fucking business and made money and sold things and was actually a part of the community instead of just a ragtag group of reporters who were just trying really fucking hard to not lose their jobs. So,
and I told Tomas for his birthday I'm going to get him a second t-shirt. So he'll own.
Yeah, I'm wearing the shirt that I always wear when I see Billy.
Tomas to me is like dresses like an action figure. It's just the same clothes every same outfit every single time. It's just his uniform.
Yep.
So
the T in Tomas stands for t-shirt, but it's always t-shirt.
Before we get into the show, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Billy has also made a regrettable alternative lifestyle choice of becoming a podcaster in the intervening months since the last time we talked to him. Billy, you want to tell everybody a little bit about, in case they don't know about Because Miami, the podcast, or tell us about anything that you're working on first?
Yeah, there's not a lot of money in documentary filmmaking, so I wanted to expand into where the real money is, theater and podcasting, So I wrote a play in 2019, and now I decided to do a podcast, which is incredibly unlucrative, but it's a whole lot of fun. And I get to partner up with my pal, Dan Lebitard, who I've known for a long time, who, of course, made a Declaration of Independence and went out on his own, created Meadowlark Media, and got financed by DraftKings. And God bless him, they're building a beautiful studio in downtown Miami, which is, it's a work in progress, but it's pretty cool. And
I was on the podcast last week. That studio's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Sometimes the electricity is a problem, but the whole building is still under construction.
Well, what are you going to do, Bill? You're going to fix the infrastructure in Miami?
Yeah, it's reliable Miami construction is really what it is.
Infrastructure, isn't that what you said?
Yes, it is what I say. But yeah, so every Friday, it's my Shabbat podcast. It goes online every Friday morning on Lebitard and Friends podcast network. It's on YouTube. It's on Apple, Spotify, etc. And really want it to be. I don't know what it is yet. We've been at it for not quite 2 years, but it's still trying to find, I think, its voice and its rhythm. But it's very much inspired by Neil Rogers and the golden age of Miami AM talk radio. I sound ancient when I say that phrase, the golden age of Miami AM talk radio. I understand there's radios in cars that are not even going to pick up AM anymore.
We got to do a Neil Rogers episode one day. That guy is an underrated, important historical media figure. Yes, definitely.
The shtick, with the parody songs that we do about hyper-local characters, and what's incredibly depressing is that my producing partner Alfred Spellman, who's a degenerate Neil Rogers fan, he actually called in the show a couple times. He has them recorded on cassette. He was so excited. But there's a small group of degenerate diehard Neilies who have acquired so many of the tapes through the years and have started an online archive. And so Alfred's constantly listening to Neil Rogers episodes. And what's so disturbing is that it just sounds like today. Yeah. It's the same fucking names. It's Suarez and Carollo and Diaz Laportilla and Hijo de Puta and Jimenez and Regalado. Yeah. And it's just these dynastic, political crime families that have been just plaguing and victimizing this community for generations.
It's boring Game of Thrones without the sexiness.
Yeah, it's Game of Thrones with iguanas instead of dragons.
Yep.
Yeah.
Except for different types of titties, old man titties. Yep. So let's get into it. This is going to be, look, if you didn't already know, this is going to be, we got Billy here. This is going to be a Miami heavy episode. This is going to be South Florida heavy episode. We've got to get through a lot of stuff, including today's Miami City Commission meeting, which comes amid no shortage of scandals, local, national, and international. But Billy, first, before we get to that, I know this guy, I hate to put you on the spot, but he's in a little bit of a hot water, and you're one of my more successful friends. You're doing well. It's really awkward to ask for money from people, and especially live on a podcast, but I promise this guy's good for it. Do you have a spare $64 million sitting around that my homie can borrow from you?
No, I have $63.5 million, though.
Oh, that should work, actually. I think he'll be all right with that.
Oh, the legal fees.
Come on.
Plus legal fees.
How's he going to get any, there's got to be a little bit of top line. Come on, man. He's got to make a little bit on the front end. Of course, we're talking about the beacon of civic integrity, Joe Carollo, the Miami City Commissioner.
Witch hunt.
Full witch hunt. Who's one of our favorite local scumbags, who has recently found himself on the wrong end of a nearly $64 million judgment in favor of local business owners who he targeted for political retribution and used city resources to harass and hinder.
Weaponized city agencies, police, fire code. You can only imagine you're a business owner and you supported his opponent in an election, and the next thing you know, you have cops coming in, falsely arresting your staff. They're shutting down your business to the tune of lost revenue of nearly $30 million, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And this is their commissioner. It's aren't you? I'd be like, aren't you supposed to be kissing my ass? I'm a small business person.
You know what's even crazier than that, though? I was talking about this with Robert earlier, because we did a press conference on Tuesday with small business owners and other residents and stakeholders in the community denouncing this criminal. And the guy from Sandwich, the
Sandwich
restaurant,
Miami.
Sandwich to Miami, the Cuban sandwich shop in Little Havana was there. And he was harassed and pretty much driven to, he basically had to get food stamps, he said, because he was so financially distraught. And he was targeted only because he rents his property from Bill Fuller, the owner of Ball and Chain. So it wasn't that he was just attacking Bill Fuller, who supported his political opponent, which he has every right to do so in this country. But he was also attacking just other business owners that had nothing to do with it, that just rented from this guy. Complete collateral damages, brought this Cuban family to almost the brink of financial ruin. Insane.
Well, that's the thing about, Bill Fuller and his business partner, Martin Pinilla. Ball and Chain is, of course, the brand that everybody kind of knows and associates. Oh, this is the Ball and Chain lawsuit. There's actually 2 Ball and Chain federal civil lawsuits. This is only the first one of them. The second one has been even more costly as far as attorney's fees are concerned, and that is 100% the city's responsibility, including the verdict, which I anticipate it's the same set of facts and the same witnesses, so I expect they will win this case as well, and that will come right out of the taxpayer's ass to the tune of, I anticipate, about probably $50 million. And that's the thing here. It's like these guys are property owners in Little Havana, very prominent, successful property owners. So it wasn't just the one bar that they were targeting. It was It was every parcel that they were that they were affiliated with, that their families owned or co-owned, and then their tenants, the business owners or people who lived or worked at those properties, became targets as well. And I mean, you literally had, because this was a First Amendment lawsuit. So the jury found, after 30 days of trial, after 24 witnesses, okay, this was insane. They determined that it was clear that Joe Carollo had violated the First Amendment rights of these business owners, but also, and this will come up in the second trial, the city violated their private property rights, right? They not only retaliated against them for their political speech, but they also closed down their businesses in retaliation, and thus depriving them of their ability to enjoy their property, the fruits of their labor, to make a living utilizing that property. I mean, I don't know about you, but a place where the government steals people's businesses.
Sounds familiar. It sounds like things that we're warned about every couple of years.
And retaliates against them for political revenge. I mean, I don't know.
It's a very familiar
Far be
story.
it for me to compare it to that beautiful island 90 miles south of Florida that a tyrannical tin pot dictator turned into a tropical gulag. But it turns out that Miami has a Fidel Castro of our own, and it is Pollo Carollo. Joe Carollo, who I should mention, to this day, I believe, has the unique distinction of being the youngest City of Miami commissioner ever elected. That was in 1979 when I was 1 year old. And here we are 44 years later, and his reign of terror is still, and it's the same fuckery. Let's be clear. It's not like he's getting worse, he's getting better. It is the absolute same bullshit. The man is a cancer. And just like a cancer, it gets to the point where if you radiate it enough, it goes into remission and disappears for like a decade. That's happened to him repeatedly. But this is his ninth life politically. This is his like, he can't, because it's not like he's going to go away now and then run again in 10 years. He's done. He's too old. He's too tired. He's not in good health. So he needs to hold on at all costs. And let me tell you right now, and Tomas made this point very vividly and appropriately and accurately at the press conference the other day. What we learn from these facts, from this evidence, from these witnesses and these exhibits, is that Joe Carollo did not act alone. And what's so fucking crazy about what happened today in City Hall is this is the first city commission meeting since that bombshell verdict, $63.5 million against Joe Carollo for corruption, for violating the Constitution of the United States, okay? And they were all pretending like it didn't happen. Like it was they're sitting up there with him voting on shit like this is just a normal day.
Co-sponsoring anti-free speech items.
Like we're through the looking glass. Like all of us are in a world in which...
That's why I appreciate it, and I want to let you talk about it, Tomas. That's why I appreciated somebody pulling the looking glass off or pulling the shades off of people's eyes. Sometimes somebody needs to stand up and say the obvious shit about things in the room, and that's what you did today. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that went down, you attending today's city commission meeting, again with Mr. Negative $63 million bank account, Joe Carollo?
Yeah, I mean, so I went to speak on something related to the mayor, which we're going to get to, but basically, the Francis Suarez, Ponce Postalita, has been caught receiving secret payments from developers to fast-track their projects.
We got that coming up,
And, I got to give credit to Billy. It was his idea. I went there to ask that anytime that the mayor has an item before the commission, and he's never there, by the way. He wasn't there today. Right. He's never there. That not only he be present, but that he be forced to sign an affidavit under penalty of perjury that basically swears that he has no financial, he's not getting any income out of it, right? He's not getting paid to lobby the city for this item because we cannot trust him. Otherwise, he was getting paid $170,000 by a developer to fast track a luxury building.
And
you know what I mean? And he did, right? The zoning,
quid pro and quo.
The zoning
right
director
there.
of the city was blocking this project, and after an email from the mayor's office, the red tape was lifted.
If that's not bribery, I'm not really sure if there is such a thing anymore.
And look, this is beyond just a hustle, right? What people have to realize is these people are elected to get the best deal out of anybody that goes before the commission for any sort of item or negotiation.
Right.
And they're getting paid by us, the taxpayers, to be in that position, and they chose to run for it. So if they're getting paid by an entity or business or developer or whatever that's lobbying the city on those items, we cannot trust them to represent us because they have a conflict of interest.
And I think it's fair at this point that we should all default to, if Francis Suarez is sponsoring an item that gives some kind of special benefit, financial or otherwise, to the,
it should be assumed that there is some
that he's being paid. Right, that he should he should have to he should have to come in and prove effectively, or under the penalty of perjury, that he is not. The burden of proof, as far as I'm concerned at this point, is on him. He is the public official. To Tomas's point.
Yeah, and to add insult to injury,
that's the slogan at the city of Miami.
Yeah, to add insult to injury, they're also sponsoring, introducing an item today that passed, I think 4-0 or 4-1.
4-1. Yeah.
4-1. That basically makes it a disorder. It makes it a disorderly conduct to act up in a public park, and it's completely targeted
against
my
Friday shit.
It's completely it's completely targeted against protest or demonstrations in our public parks that we own, and it is an obvious reaction to the stunt, the protest that we did with chickens against Joe Carollo's Grifter Cats and Dogs Park that we know was $1 million boondoggle for one of his wife's friends. I mean, we've talked about this in this podcast before, but it's a reaction to that because that was in a public park, and the chicken ended up having the chicken man that was arrested ended up having his charges dropped. Under this item, those charges would have stuck. And Joe Carollo was one of the sponsors, and they were fellow commissioners that co-sponsor this item with him. To Billy's point, they're out there not talking about what happened with the lawsuit, not talking about the fact that city agencies were weaponized, not talking about how compromised the city attorney is and all this, which, by the way, we should talk about, taking away not only our property rights, but our First Amendment rights in city property that we own that's public, and just pretending that nothing happened, that everything's okay, and that this guy is just a fellow commissioner, that he should be treated with deference, and respect.
Collegial respect. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let me be
crazy.
clear. Last week, Joe Carollo was convicted, we could say, but really held liable by a federal civil jury for violating the First Amendment rights of these property owners and weaponizing the city, virtually the entire city government, to do it. And the first meeting back, they pass a blatantly unconstitutional ordinance to violate the First Amendment rights of their residents.
And they unveiled the words "In God We Trust" behind the dais.
Well, that was the most
what
important
an accomplishment!
Thing. That was the most important
and Manolo
thing.
Reyes is
tweeting. Shame on Manolo Reyes. Shame on Manolo Reyes. It's true what former Miami Police Commissioner, Police Chief Art Acevedo said. He is part of the three-headed monster with Joe Carollo and Alex Diaz-Laportilla, who gleefully and bi-monthly or bi-weekly violate the charter of the city of Miami and violate the rights of its residents, visitors, and business owners. And for anybody who he's the good one, or by the way, low bar. It's like being the tallest Corben.
The bar is in hell. The bar is in hell.
Yeah, it's outrageous, and they're all complicit. Let me be clear, because does nobody want to talk about the fact that the city was weaponized? That's what the jury found. Who in code enforcement needs to be held responsible? I can tell you right now, Art Acevedo.
This doesn't happen alone.
Remember, Art Acevedo was fired. City of Miami Police Chief Art Acevedo, who got fired after he called out the corruption of the three-headed monster on the dais. Turns out now it's a five-headed monster, by the way. It's the whole fucking city hall. But he specifically testified that one of the main capos, if you will, or enforcers.
I think that's fair. I think
for this operation.
Yeah. Consigliere.
Listen, it's a RICO. It is absolutely a racketeering organization masquerading as a municipal government. That is what Miami is. And he said that the guy who was the head of the task force, who was an assistant police chief at the time, they realized as soon as Acevedo came in, they realized he was not going to play ball. He thought this was shady as fuck. Okay, he hadn't even been sworn in yet, and he had already been invited by the city manager and Joe Carollo to go on one of his creepy midnight stakeouts to go like, oh, you got to look out for these guys. These are the bad guys. And he's like, what am I doing here?
Where was Acevedo coming from? Houston? Where was he? Or did he go to Houston? I forget.
No, he was the chief. Yeah, formerly.
Yeah, and it was just a real culture shock, I think, for him to be like, oh no, this is just what we do here.
I don't know if you heard Joe Carollo said he's not a real Cuban, is what he said. I don't know what qualifies as a real Cuban. But Joe Carollo was not. It's not a Miami. And Joe Carollo's like,
he grew up in Chicago.
He grew up in Chicago. And didn't even go to high school. He went into school like Broward or some shit. But irregardless.
I would love for him to say that to Joey Coco Diaz, that he's not a real Cuban. Be like, because he's from New Jersey. What the fuck? Yeah,
he also sounds Italian. He gets a lot more work playing Italians than Coco plays Cubans. Like, he's like, no, I swear I'm Cuban. I swear it. I swear I am. Let me tell you about doing blow with my cat. Oh, God, I love that man. So
I love this man.
I got one of the first times I got secondhand stone was getting hotboxed in his studio doing his podcast, and I realized I was telling a story, and I was like in the story, and I was like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm talking about, and I forgot like the end. I didn't forget the end of the story. I forgot to tell the end of the story, and it was only like driving home later when I was like, oh shit, I don't think I finished.
Should I call in and
I don't
finish
think I finished that story. Like, I did this whole fucking long story. Because he's a Rakontur. That's the great thing about Joe. He's not like a set-up punchline guy. He's a Rakontur. He tells you a story. It's the journey, you know? And so I tried to do that on his show, and I realized I just drifted. My brain just melted. It was wild. I digress. Irregardless, yeah.
Joey Coco Diaz is clearly a better hang than Joe Carollo.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Far and away.
Are you kidding?
In the realm of real Cubans.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Get some Chiba Chews and not wife beaters.
So right before we had a little extended break for a moment, we were about to get to Tomas.
Well, this is
what led Tomas.
No, but this is the point, though, is that what Acevedo said was they started to work around him. The city manager, Art Noriega, Joe Carollo, they knew that Acevedo was going to play ball. So who helped them in their unconstitutional operation? Manny Morales, who at the time was the assistant chief, but is now the chief, because when they fired Art Acevedo,
who was sworn in to the Godfather theme song played via
Joe
phone
Carollo.
by Joe Carollo.
Because Art Acevedo referred
that video.
Yeah, definitely not ideal conditions, but I'm honored and humble. I have been a servant of the city of Miami. I've been a humble servant of the city of Miami for 28 years, and I look forward to the next chapter. I look forward to getting to know the residents, the visitors.
Art Acevedo referred to them as the Cuban Mafia. And he said the city and the police department is run by the Cuban Mafia. And so Joe Carollo, when they fired this guy in a kangaroo court, or his former police chief, George Colina, used to call it Carollo court, Joe Carollo played the Godfather theme music while they swore in Manny Morales, who we now know under oath from the testimony of the former police chief, he was their inside man.
And by the way, it must be said, one of the reasons why they went after Acevedo is because he called them a Cuban mafia.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're playing like this theme song of one of the most famous mafia movies of all time.
My favorite moment during the trial, I went there for a bunch of days. It was fantastic. My favorite novella. And it was like someone was spending millions of dollars for a Netflix series just for me, just for me. And so I'm sitting there, and Art Acevedo is under this very tense cross-examination, and one of Carollo's team of defense lawyers says to him, starts to challenge him on this inappropriate remark about Cuban mafia. And Acevedo goes, yes. And I stand by it. It's the reason we're here right now. It was so obvious, and people were chuckling because it was yes, of course it is. That's exact. I call it the Miami Mafia because it's not just
No,
the
it's
Cubans.
not just Cubans.
Yeah, I mean, it's Christine King.
Yeah. If you want to play ball, they'll let you play ball.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, the friends and family plan, no question. But here's the thing: is that you have to blame in a criminal racketeering organization. You have to look at who, not just the enablers are, but the complicit and unnamed co-conspirators. And there is no one more responsible than the consigliere. Because under Tom Hagen, under the sort of the shield of law, of an officer of the court and the rule of law, they justify and come up with crazy defenses for every corrupt and criminal act that these city officials commit.
And they get them off the hook.
And that is Vicky Mendez, who I've always referred to as a mob lawyer. And people are always, that's being hyperbolic. And it's like, well,
Absolutely
now
not.
you've had a jury determined that that's exactly what she is. So you have this woman who is a witness, by the way, in the second ball and chain case. She's already been deposed under oath. She is, according to the evidence presented in the first trial, and no doubt there's more of it in the second trial. Bill Fuller told me they only presented 50% of their evidence in this case.
That's all they needed to win.
Okay, that's all they needed to win $63.5 million. Imagine if they presented the rest of it. They might have gotten $200 million. But long story even longer, she can't give legal advice to the city. She is conflicted out. But there's no ethics. She should be disbarred for what she's doing. Any responsible lawyer would come to you and say, Dave, listen, unfortunately, I can't be a witness and an unnamed co-conspirator and your attorney at the same. I recommend you need to get independent, outside counsel. Of course, but these commissioners are not only ignorant, but they're willfully ignorant. They're not just saying, oh, I guess I believe everything the city attorney's saying. They know better, but they don't want to know better. Right. Everything. She is giving them statements, prepared statements that they're just parroting and regurgitating out to the media, and it is bile. It cannot be trusted. I mean, and she's playing the shell game about how the attorney's fees, the millions of dollars in attorney's fees that the city is on the hook for, how that's being paid. Oh, we have an insurance policy.
Yeah, I heard some of that today.
But there's that just introduces a million more questions that have to be asked. The city commissioners, some of them know. The city commissioners either don't know what questions to ask or don't care. They just want it to go away.
Or both.
But it's not going away. This is not going away.
Yeah, and I think that's probably...
Because there's a fucking second trial it's still to be determined.
I think that's one of the things that makes it unique among Miami scandals is in the 18 years I've lived here, so many things that are akin to this tend to not have the steam, right?
It's got legs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this seems to have legs. And that's great. Because you know what? Nobody deserves it more than Joe Carollo.
Before we drift away from Vicky, can you recount the testimony that former Commissioner Ken Russell gave during the trial? Because I thought that was nuts.
Yeah, Ken Russell is an interesting character because, of course, he has blood on his hands and his face and his feet and his ass and everywhere because this idiot was there.
The skateboarding accident?
He was probably a scooter. A scooter. He was yo-yoing while he was on one of these.
Yo-yo scootering and surfing at the same time.
These scooters that are just on their side on a corner that you're just supposed to pick up with an app. And I'm just like, every time I brush by one of those, I have a final destination. I see how I die if I rent this fucking thing, you know? Anyway, Ken Russell, who is in the midst of this desperate bit of reputation laundering,
right?
This kind of revisionist history of just this guy should be removed from all. I'm like, you were there, motherfucker.
Yeah,
you were there. You were voting in lockstep with this guy. What are you talking about?
Talking about somebody who's from one of the out groups, but was absolutely ready to play ball, what we were just talking about.
Absolutely. He not ready to play ball? He played ball. Yeah. Okay.
This is Monday morning quarterbacking a game you were in.
Listen, how can you can't. It's like the conflict of interest. You can't be a pundit criticizing the government that you're in, that you're a part of, that you're a legislator. Yeah. You have a vote. You just don't go on social media and complain about it.
I think you can if you're oppositional to the rest of your corrupt piece of shit commissioners, but he never was.
Well, no, he never was.
He was a part of it, absolutely a part of it. But now he's telling the truth.
Yeah.
God bless him. I know that Pat Robertson is looking up on him today and. The light of the Lord. The light of the Lord. God, in God we trust. Isn't that what it says now? On the great accomplishment of Manolo Reyes.
But tell us the testimony.
So, Commissioner Ken Russell, District 2. Former commissioner, but at the time he was a commissioner, sitting commissioner. So District 2 is kind of a big deal because over 70% of all the revenue for the entire city comes from this one district.
It's the money, yeah.
It's the money, and then they spread it.
And the former, I think Billy will agree with me, the former representative of that district still is calling the shots, as we learned through the Miami Herald disaster from just, what was that, last year, right? Yeah. It feels 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Sarnoff was shamelessly corrupt, but he was in charge, meaning at least the D2 commissioner was the king of Miami, controlled the dais, and controlled the majority of votes. Then it became Joe Carollo. Here's the thing. D2 is generating well over 70% of the revenue for the entire city and then spreading that wealth around to the other the other, you know what that is, David? That's socialism. It's socialism.
We can't have that here.
So yes, welfare queens. That's what Joe Carollo and Alex Diaz-Laportilla are. They're welfare. They're socialists and welfare queens. Stealing money from D2 and buying free groceries for their. I mean, this isn't communism. I don't know what is, but that's because everybody who calls things communism actually doesn't know what communism is.
Gerald, I would almost say it's neoliberalism, right? Because there's means testing. The means testing is that you gotta be elected to public office, and then you get all the good stuff.
That's always the big irony with neoliberalism is they pitch it as like we're unleashing the free market, but in practice, like it's just the government and private firms working hand in hand together, like on behalf of each other's own interests.
to fuck everyone over.
Yeah.
D2 commissioner at the time, Ken Russell, gets a call from a constituent, a popular like pizza bar restaurant in the Brickell area, and they're like, Commissioner, I don't know what happened. Like, we opened up like we do every single day. It's business as usual. And they came and they shut us down. And this is crazy. And we don't know what we did wrong. We don't, and that's the other thing too, is that these businesses, by and large, they want to work with the city. They're like, okay, just tell us how to remedy this. We want to open for work. We want our employees to be able to make a living. And, in Miami, which the least affordable housing market in the entire country right now, people don't live paycheck to paycheck. They live like tip jar to tip jar.
Right.
Like the money they scrape out of there every day is that's not money to go out and party. That's money to go home and pay rent
It's
and buy food for their and clothing for their children. So it's a fucking desperate situation here, and so nobody wants to fuck around and find out with the city government. They don't want to fight City Hall. They want to be supported.
Right way.
They want to be supported by their government to get their businesses back open again. You'd think the government want to do that, but not in this case. Ken Russell goes to City Attorney Vicky Mendez and says, "Hey, this constituent of mine in this district, they're responsible business owners. They've been open a long time. They haven't done anything differently. They're trying to figure out what they did wrong. They got shut down." And she said, "Oh, well, we're being accused of targeting Bill Fuller and Martin Panilla's businesses, including Taquerias and Ball and Chain." He goes, "So we need to start it was a cover up.
Spread the dragnet.
Right. We need to make it look like need to make it look like code enforcement is cracking down citywide and not just forget Joe's district, just these business owners in Joe Carollo's district." So she had confessed to the cover-up and confessed to the crime, which was targeting, of course, and violating their First Amendment rights. So when Tomas says collateral damage, that's forget the tenants of Bill Fuller that are other people who the city needed to target to cover up Joe Carollo's unconstitutional behavior, but that is unconstitutional and illegal behavior, and that is you're abusing you're abusing police powers. You are depriving people of livelihoods, liberty, property, the pursuit of freedom. I mean, this is fundamental shit in a free country, in a democracy, in a capitalist country, or neoliberal for that matter.
By the way, these are like, and I almost feel like we shouldn't have to qualify this, but like, these are like really successful businesses that we're talking about. And if you're outside of Miami or you're outside of South Florida,
some more than others.
Yeah,
but
some more than others.
Sandwich isn't like every fucking like food list in Miami. You know what I mean?
And Ball and
they're
Chain.
renowned.
But when you have a friend come from out of town and you want to show them like actors salsa
like
dancing,
jewels.
Ball and Chain is where you go. Yeah,
Ball and Chain is historic.
It's institutional. Yeah. Exactly.
Absolutely. And then Azúcar there, and and Union Beer and Bar Nancy. There's like all the people don't go to Calle Ocho because of politicians.
No.
They go because of these businesses. They go for the culture, the Cuban culture. They go for the food. They go for the music. They go for the art and the entertainment. And that's what these guys cultivate, and that's what they support. And some of them are small business owners. Some of them are successful. Some of them are guys who can afford to finance a multi-million-dollar federal civil case as spring training. Yeah. As dress rehearsrsal for their second multi-million-dollar federal civil case.
That's my point that I wanted to get to is that I feel like there are again, like this is conjecture on my part, but can you imagine how many people driving down the Flagler corridor of Little Havana, for instance, that is less, for those who don't know, less moneyed part of town, right? Than the very tourist-friendly Calle Ocho. Mm-hmm. How many small business owners have had to deal with this iron fist in invisible ways that we'll never even know about?
Yeah.
That are happening conversations in Spanish. Yeah. That who knows for how long they've had to deal with this shit.
Annette Tadeo made this point at the press conference this week, rather beautifully. She's like, you shouldn't have to be a multimillionaire to get justice, to buy, to be able to, when she says buy justice, she means just finance a lawsuit to get your day in court to be heard. And that's why the ultimate villain is the mentor of city attorney Vicky Mendez, Catherine Fernandez Rundle, the state attorney, the top cop in Miami-Dade County for the last 30 years.
Completely useless.
Our only
corrupt
prosecutor since Janet Reno left for the Clinton administration in 1993, for fuck's sake. And so 30 years later, if you want to know, and this is not a sexy answer because people always ask me, Billy, why is Miami so fucked up and corrupt? I'm like, let me give you the unsexy answer. The state attorney. If you look at, if you want to know what's wrong with a place, you don't look at what changes. You look at the constants, that what's fucking it up. And when your top cop abdicates her responsibility to pursue public corruption cases and accountability in the public sector, you are going to see an explosion of that kind of fuckery, which is exactly what's happened. People know, politicians know, police know that they're going to get away with shit because she's not going to pursue it. And so what do? They do shit. That's what, and it's, let's call it the broken windows theory of corruption.
A few years ago, a friend of mine, and I think probably a friend of your guys' too, I'm not sure though, Melba Pearson ran against Catherine Fernandez Rundle. And she made the point, I interviewed her on a podcast, and she made the point, okay, let's look over the last, 30 years, I think at that point, of Catherine Fernandez Rundle's record. Do you think that no Miami police officers have done anything wrong? Or is it more likely that there have been at least some that have done things that are wrong and just not get prosecuted? And that is another part of her record. She has never once. I think that maybe that changed just recently in the last year.
She has never. She got a credible electoral challenge.
She has never, 30 years, she has never charged a law enforcement officer for an on-duty killing. Ever. That's right. Never, ever. And it's not for a lack of such incidents.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, it started happening a lot more. And the reason it started happening a lot more is
because there's no accountability. There's no consequence.
People know they can get away with it. And in fact, the message is also you're more likely to be charged for abusing but not killing someone than you are if you leave no witnesses behind. So that's a message of impunity.
That's a pretty perverse incentive structure.
It's a message of impunity that the top cop sends to the public sector in this community. She just arrested last year, and Governor DeSantis removed him from office, Miami-Dade County Commissioner Joe Martinez for accepting $15,000 in payments. And if I'm not mistaken, before he was even a county commissioner, those payments occurred. But you've been the prosecutor in Miami-Dade County for 30 years, and the most corruption you can find now is $15,000. We know that Francis Suarez got $170,000 from a developer that he helped.
I want to transition to that, actually, now that you say that, because
You're not allowed to transition in Florida anymore. I'm sorry. That's not illegal.
I'm going to get on a plane to Sweden to find a legal transition and hopefully be, have my points recognized by the Department of Motor Vehicles when I get back here on my license. But look, I was trying to imagine a guy, all right? I was trying to imagine the guy who attended the NFT conference in 2022.
Me?
Yes. I'm trying to imagine the guy who had a...
we did send a truck there.
Who had 23. There was an NFT conference this year. It was not well attended, but they were there.
I saw them. I also noticed that they were plugging their previous year's speakers on their homepage.
Well, they got Francis.
I know. They managed to pull him out. That's what I want to get to. So you're that guy, right? And let's say that you're walking through Wynwood and one of our famously brittle pieces of infrastructure falls on your head, knocks you out for a year. And you wake up today, and you were heavily invested in NFTs and Bitcoin and a number of. Actually, if you were invested in Bitcoin, you're probably okay right now. But that's another story.
Well, it depends on what you bought.
But let's say that you were inspired by this upstart, radical mayor who took his position and decided to maybe.
How can I help, bro?
Maybe how can I help, bro? Maybe, according to again the Politico article that was from a year ago, maybe a dark horse run for president. Holy shit. And you wake up today and open up your Google and try and find out how's my favorite politician been doing recently? So quick rundown on Suarez since you got knocked out. His city attorney seems to have been running a scam with her husband to fleece old folks out of their home.
We left that part out when we're talking about Vicky. There's so much fuckery.
Wait. His former...
Vicky Mendez is the city attorney that he's referring to.
His former aide, Rene Pedrosa, has pleaded guilty to getting child porn sent to him by a 16-year-old boy.
That was after he was arrested for not just the child porn,
Right.
but for molesting that 16-year-old boy in the mayor's conference room on the second floor of City Hall. And he used his position to lure that boy under the guise of, oh, maybe you'll get a job in City Hall.
Right, but no, but what I have to do as a parent is be careful taking my kid to drag queen brunch hours.
City Hall is what you have to be careful of.
And now even
Not
more
a drag queen.
even more direct and recent allegations of corruption that we've alluded to already from I pulled this from Alain Devaille's Political Corteritos. Quote, Suarez won't say who gifted him the $30,000 in tickets and events related to the recent Formula One races last month. And then there are the bribes. The Miami Herald uncovered recently that Suarez was paid $10,000 a month, a total of $170,000 by Location Ventures, which we just alluded to.
The developer.
And
We should score this. Or someone should drop a beat. Should freestyle beat right now.
and put it in, we'll do it in
we'll
post. Despite this, Ladra reports that 5 key Suarez staffers, how about this, Billy? I don't know if you've read this or not, that 5 key Suarez
read.
staffers have taken...
I'm a Miami-Dade County Public Schools graduate.
have taken...
I'm a functioning illiterate, David.
Have taken unpaid leave through at least August, forming the contours of a campaign team. And Suarez held a fundraiser at the Epic Hotel for a super PAC called America for Everyone.
He's running.
Sound familiar? Suarez's own personal PAC, Miami for Everyone. We'll start seeing more because of Suarez in the public really soon, which I can't wait to see, because apparently he's starting a national media tour and a national speaking tour.
And you know what really sucks about that? It gives me no pride to say this. I am not the preeminent. I am not the wisest, but I am the only expert on Francis Suarez. So I fear as
What about Xavier?
I fear as he raises his profile that I'm going to have to, I'm going to get calls from
You have Joanne Reed calling you just
We're going to have a lot of fun with this.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of attention down here.
Yeah.
It's hysterical. It's hysterical. And he's, his MO lately, not lately, in after probably his first year or so in office, is he's running away from Miami. He made it so he has
not been seen.
You have to love this novella. You have to love this generational situation where Joe Carollo brought down, effectively ended the political career of Xavier Suarez, Francis's father, after the 97 mayoral election, which was one of the most notorious. Really, to understand Miami of today, you have to go back to 97, 98. That whole stretch between 97.
Well, you gotta go to Hulu and watch. It's still streaming because you got into that in the series in a
little bit. HBO 537 votes. Yeah. So if you go from
my favorite documentary of yours.
Great one.
Thanks. But if you go to 97 mayoral election through Elion, basically, and Joe Carollo was mayor, Joe Carollo became mayor not because he was elected, but because Xavier Suarez's campaign was responsible for so much election fraud that a judge simply said, after Xavier won, he said, "You're not the winner anymore, Joe Carollo, Mazel Tov, Maga Tov. You are the mayor of Miami."
What a Sophie's choice that is.
It's
can you imagine?
But by the way, that 97 mayoral election is the dawn and is the kernel and the roots of a lot of the Republican talking points today about corruption and fuckery in elections, the dead people voting, all that. That happened. They're right. It happened in Miami by Republicans in 1997.
Right.
There's no widespread voter fraud beyond that. However, there was in 97 in the Miami mayoral election. And also Humberto Hernandez was, it's just such a good story. If you can find it, watch the 60 Minutes Steve Kroft report from 1998 called Welcome to Miami. It is the best 11 or 12 minutes you'll ever spend to understand not only Miami in the late 90s at the turn of the century, but Miami right now. And Francis Suarez, who's been treated by the media with absurd levels of credulity,
silk gloves.
like credulity,
that's my thing.
Look what he's doing, he's so great. But it's like he's just the nepo baby fail son of his dad instead of his own independent corrupt entity,
Tomas, I think about the way that the national media absorbs when they're not familiar, when they don't have the level of familiarity
on us,
that Billy has or that local people have when they absorb a character like this. And I'm already having nightmares about the way that this guy's going to be presented on national media. And I feel like, do you think that there's going to be a narrative of him, Mr. Mayor, plucky upstart, Republican city?
Look, I don't know, but that's what he is trying to be, like the Pete Buttigieg of Miami, right? Like he's going to present himself as this disruptor, innovative, tech-friendly mayor.
Right.
And he, these people are so egotistical and narcissistic that I think he probably does believe he can catch fire and somehow become president. But the alternative is that he raises a shit ton of money for his federal PAC for a future endeavor, and maybe he gets like an ambassadorship or like a cabinet position or some administration job. So
or he
this
comes
is the
home and
end goal
runs
here.
for governor, comes home and runs for county
Uses
mayor.
the profile to jump up. Yeah.
But our job is to fucking destroy this fucking grifter who has
Our job-
who has destroyed the city. You know what I mean? Destroyed our institutions and lowered our quality of living substantially.
Our job is to tell the truth. That is our job. Is to tell the truth.
But the truth would destroy this guy's reputation
That's,
because
if that's to
he
be
is
the
so
consequence of the
compromised.
truth, then so be it. But it's important because, Miami is a town where the truth is hate and lies are love, where we don't have reality, we have realty. Okay,
it's a sunny place for shady people.
If I look outside right now and go, oh shit, it's raining and flooding, go, you're a fucking hater, bro. It's like, no, I just looked
I'm just
outside
making
and told, I'm being minimally observant is actually what I'm being. It's like,
don't come with that woke shit.
Miami coin lost 99% of its value and was delisted from the only exchange that had it. You're a fucking hater, but it's like, no, I just told you a fact. That's why I said our job is simply to and in Miami, in a place where it's such a facade and we subsist from hustle to hustle because we have such a transient population and lack of institutional memory. If you tell the truth, they're like, no, we're all in on this, right? It's a conspiracy of convenience. As long as we just, it's like that town in Breakdown, the Kurt Russell movie. Alfred Spellman, my producing partner, always says it. Our job is you come into town, we're all in on it. We grab you by the ankles, we shake upside down, all your money falls out, and we send you on your merry way. And that's how Miami thrives, really, from boom and bust cycle. But this people need to know who everybody is who's running for president. What's funny about it, when he enters the race, which I anticipate next week, when he enters the race, he will be the third Republican presidential primary candidate currently under criminal investigation.
Brilliant.
So
I love it.
I love this town.
I think we should leave it there.
How about this, fellas? We can end the main portion of the show there. How about a little round of Guess the Grifter?
Oh.
Yeah, all right. We're going to drop in
We need a theme. We need theme music.
I have theme music. Okay. We're going to drop it in here. Okay. And now, the hit, somewhat hit, quiz show sensation sweeping the nation, or at least the audience of this niche Florida-focused podcast. We have one of our favorite guests back, of course. Billy is here, and that means that it's time for another edition of Guess the Grifter. But this time, to make the
We only play this game with you, by the way.
That's true, yeah. We've only played it with you. But this time...
Sole contestant.
This time, to make the griftery goodness even gooder, and to honor our show's premise, we are proudly presenting Guess the Grifter Florida Edition. Here's how the game works. I will play the role of Quizmaster or Griftmaster, and our three contestants will each get 2 chances to guess the grifter. If you cannot, the next contestant has a chance to steal. So we're going to start in alphabetical order, and with deference and hospitality to our guests, let's get started with Guess the Grifter with veteran Billy Corben. So, Billy, this one's a little bit of I'm throwing you a little curveball. This is a twofer. You're going to have to name 2 names to get 1 point. Ripped from the headlines. Let's begin with the GOAT, or according to some people who know more about soccer than me, the SGOAT. Second greatest of all time. Yesterday, we learned that Argentinian soccer legend Lionel Messi will become the least dishonest billionaire in recent memory to take his talents to South Beach. Or more accurately, no, I really do think that athletes are like the only honest billionaires out there. I mean, because at least they fucking did something. At least there was something exceptional about them.
Isn't it appropriate that Messi comes to Miami?
Well, more accurately, he's going to be coming to Fort Lauderdale's iconic historic Drive Pink Stadium just off of scenic Commercial Boulevard. Yes, that's right. Miami or Miami-Dade and Broward
Enter Fort Lauderdale
is now, this general area is the center of the sports universe. Sadly, we come not to praise Miami FC, but to bury it. The pair of grifters that we have to thank or blame for foisting this parasitic soccer club on South Florida have come under recent fire over unpaid parking fees. Not exactly, but since their first season, Miami FC has racked up some $1.3 million in unpaid fees.
Inter Miami. It's not Miami FC.
What am I saying?
Miami FC is a different group. Yeah.
I don't know soccer, guys. According to Local 10 News, the city of Fort Lauderdale is at loggerheads with our grifters over this unpaid sum. Now, it's no longer welcome to use parking at nearby Lockhart Stadium, and patrons of the club are being relegated to, I guess, street parking. Some
It's the longest question in game show history.
By the way, if you're hoping to see La Pulga live, get ready to pony up, because our grifters, in the past 24 hours, they have raised ticket prices from $29 to a robust $350 to see a game.
It's inflation.
So we're looking for 2 grifters here. One local boy who's made good, and another from beyond the pond. Billy, guess the grifters.
Jorge Mas and David Beckham.
Ding, ding, ding. That's right.
Don't bend over for Beckham.
Don't bend over for Beckham. I think we're going to be down here bending over for Beckham for quite some time.
Undefeated.
And I should admit, consistent with past Miami sports franchise owners who do not keep their promises, they have not built the park that they promised Fort Lauderdale when they got a sweetheart deal on Lockhart Stadium.
From Local 10, the city of Fort Lauderdale had an existing parking agreement with Beckham to allow them to, well, fuck it. I mean, like, what else do you have to say? They didn't pay out $1.3 million. Like, they didn't pay
No,
it.
it's not that they didn't pay. They want the city to waive it for them.
To waive it for them
That's
now,
what
yeah,
they
yeah.
want. They're like, why should we pay for permits? Do you know who we are? And Fort Lauderdale's like, maybe you get away with this shit in Miami, but this ain't Miami, honey.
So next up is Jerry. And Tomas, you have a chance to steal if Jerry can't do this. From an overqualified...
Odds are high, I'll be honest.
From an overqualified superstar setting a new South Florida precedent to an unqualified stupid guy being named a South Florida president. It's been announced that this grifter has been named the next president of South Florida State University, despite never doing an hour of postgraduate work in his life, and despite having no significant educational experience in his career. This grifter earned fame in 2020 when, as a sitting Osceola County commissioner, he was arrested for impersonating a deputy police officer after a contentious homeowners association meeting, which sounds like the most fucking Florida thing ever. He was removed from his commission seat by DeSantis and then soon won a seat in the state legislature, where he famously advanced legislation on DeSantis' behalf aimed at undermining Disney's self-governing Reedy Creek district. Of course, as we know, the person in charge of filling university vacancies is the state governor. So, is this appointment political quid pro quo? Who quid pro knows? All we know is this grifter continues failing upwards. Gerald, guess the grifter, and if not, Tomas, you can steal.
By any chance, is it Fred Hawkins?
It is Fred Hawkins. Ding, 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 ding. Nice. All right. He's currently representing District 42.
This is why you gotta follow at Tomas Ken on Twitter. So you know
I was ready to steal it, Gerald.
Well, Tomas, here comes yours. All right, you ready? I had to log into my alt account to catch up with this grifter due to the fact that my main was blocked after I programmed it to respond to every one of his tweets with the words car dildo. That might be a giveaway. This MAGA media goon and former NYPD cop has officially jumped from Team Trump and is among the vanishingly few freaks on the right.
Are you talking about John Cordillo?
I thought the game was to let David finish the endless question.
Yes, the endless questions. No, did you guys know? I'm gonna just say the thing that I was gonna say. Did you guys know that now there are rumors swirling that John was actually the leaker of the DeSantis audio from the donor meeting? So he might be a man with no country.
If only
And Christina Pusha invited him. By the way,
if only your
back that Bob.
If only your listeners could see my shocked face right now.
Billy is agog. And it is his turn.
His jaw came unhinged, and Francis Suarez walked down his unrolled tongue to try to hawk more Bitcoin.
So far, you guys are hitting a perfect game. Billy, we're going back to you.
All right.
Oh, what a fall for this once promising GOP upstart congresswoman elected for the first time at the age of 58, which made her basically a spring chicken in Congress. As a centrist, she is undeniably photogenic and replacing an ineffective, abjectly corrupt single-term Democrat. But now she's found herself in somewhat lukewarm water after missing numerous reporting deadlines and failing to disclose her own stock trades, something that she rightly criticized her Democratic predecessor for doing. Billy, guess the grifter.
Maria Elvira Salazar.
That's right.
Who loves Fidel.
She loves him. So from Raw Story, Maria Elvira Salazar, the Florida congresswoman who blasted her Democratic predecessor. Yeah, once again, she's done this a few times, has forgotten to or was late in disclosing her spouse's.
You know why, David? Because Fidel Castro and the communists are coming to get us, and we have to stop it. Oh God!
So,
what
Tomas, do you know
decade is it?
Can you guess? Can you guess what she was trading?
I don't know, some healthcare shit.
Miami coins.
That's a really good guess, but no. Next era. the parent company
FP&L.
of FP&L. That's right.
Holy shit.
Just
That was a Miami connection. That was a Florida connection.
I went to
Florida within Florida. Florida Inception.
there's on benzinga.com. There's this
Florida
interesting
pillage and loot. That's what Michael Grunwald calls it.
there's a interesting AI function on Benzinga. They have an AI congressional tracker for what Congress people are investing in. Brother, when I tell you that she has done $1.2 million of trades in the last 4 months, and almost all of it is in the energy sector, and almost all of it is next era. And
By the way, as I recall, she was broke as fuck before she was elected. She there was like houses in foreclosure. There was like shady shit.
She got $500,000 dumped on her by a company called Kano Health, which is yeah.
That's why I took the health.
To basically host a podcast.
Oh, really? One of these SPAC companies out of Coral Gables.
Yes.
You don't say.
Who has actually a pretty robust working relationship with a previous subject of Guess the Grifter, whose name now I can't fucking remember because he doesn't matter to me anymore.
Life
Mr.
Wallet.
Football Stadium.
Ruiz.
Life Wallet. John Ruiz.
Ruiz, yes, the homie.
That's
Yeah.
right. They there's this weird thing of this sort of I don't know, this pool of money. The companies loan each other money through
Yes.
these different shady SPACs, and they're all you can just picture them all like some cigar bar in Coral Gables going, and then I'll give you $60 million, and then you'll do this, and then we'll do that. And meanwhile,
One day we're going to do a
this
whole
is like
episode
a
on this,
penny
yeah.
stock, this company, that on any given day will suddenly be up 8% on no news. And you're like, 8% on a company that has failed to file timely financial reports, a company that just announced that all of its previous financial reports are inaccurate and cannot be trusted based on their accounting methodology, and it went up 8%
And it went up
today
again.
to like 62 cents. It's like, what? On no news? You know what does that? Not a real company.
Watch Wolf of Wall Street for more information on this. Gerald, it is your turn, and we're gonna ruffle some feathers amongst our listenership with this one. All right, so now I was unable to find, Tomas, maybe you know about this, but any Florida-specific Democratic primary polling. I don't think it exists right now, but if there was any, I don't think I'd be going out on a limb when I say that this grifter would be at least kind of close to Sleepy Joe. This grifter is famously anti-vax, but he'd probably prefer if we think of him as anti-war. This is too easy.
No, do it. I want to hear.
So he doesn't live in the Sunshine State, so why include him in this Guess the Grifter? Because in recent weeks, it's come to light that granddaddy of political grifting, swinging Dick Nixon tattoo-having, right-wing fixer, and human-adjacent life form Roger Stone was actually the one behind his candidacy.
And his wife is a Florida woman.
And his wife is
She's from Florida.
Oh, I didn't know that. See,
you have
there's
it.
a connection, too.
Always a Florida connection. Always.
Always.
Stone, working alongside fellow Florida man and polo shirt enthusiast Steve Bannon, have turned our grifter into a Nepo baby Kanye. He's also receiving a hearty endorsement from honorary Florida man Alex Jones. Jerry, guess the grifter.
It has to be none other than Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Robert F.
Boom,
Kennedy.
baby. You got it.
All right. So now, Tomas, comes down to you, even though you guys are all just going to tie because I made this as a sort of, exercise for everybody feeling good.
I feel good.
Our final grifter is an esoteric one, and you really have to be brain poisoned with Florida politics to know his name, so who better than our own Tomas Kennedy to answer? Now, I say that this grifter is esoteric, but maybe it would be better to describe them as emblematic of the normalized quid pro quo in the state, of the revolving door between public service, private sector paychecks, and the institutions that ride the rails between the two. This grifter comes from the realm of jurisprudence and was appointed to the Florida Supreme Court in 2008, became the chief in 2012, was appointed to a very crucial role with Citizens United Insurance just a few months ago, and is now piecing the fuck out to go into the public sector for law, and is going to, by the way, with this I don't want to give away the agency, but with the firm, but it is a white shoe firm that is going to not just allow, but encourage him to continue to work in the exact same areas that he was working, with Citizens United, which for those of you that don't know is a quasi-public entity, is basically the same as working in the fucking public sector. So this one is a little tougher, T.
I forgot the name, but you gave it out when you said the former Florida Chief Supreme.
Yeah, it's Ricky Polston.
Yeah.
Ricky Polston, everybody. So the grifteriest thing, like I said about Polston's new gig, is that according to Florida Politics reporting,
It's crazy.
he's going to be allowed to work for clients in the insurance sector. He was just, which by the way is going great in Florida. All insurance is fine. Like it's awesome. But
See our second episode on this with Anna Skimani for more
Exactly, yeah.
information.
I feel like someone needs to do a really deep dive into. CNN had a story that kind of got into it a little bit, but Florida's hidden taxes.
Yeah.
Because the notion that this is just a cheap place to live is or cheaper is ludicrous, particularly combined with the ability of like revenue generation, like what jobs pay
Right.
in this market.
What you
It's
can
just-
expect, yeah.
Yeah, but like people just it's I mean, between the cost of housing, but we are the #1 toll road state in the union.
Yeah.
More miles of toll roads than any other state.
and what do you get for that? The deadliest experience driving,
Right.
because we are also the most dangerous place to get into a car.
But then and then ranks at the bottom for public education. So you have to send your kids to private school if you want to have a family here. You have. If you can get homeowners insurance or flood insurance, it is the most expensive. Healthcare costs are completely out of control, while the quality of the healthcare being provided is going to drop precipitously, because you're not going to have real doctors who want to practice medicine in a state that doesn't allow them to offer life-saving healthcare to their patients and wait for women to bleed in the fucking waiting room or whatever in order before they admit them. And like people are just real people, real doctors are not going to want to do this. So you're going to have again high cost, low quality, high cost, low quality. But that is Florida's motto.
All right, I think that's a good place to leave it. And
Let's drink.
You can keep this. Going back full circle to the beginning of this conversation, I need a fucking drink. Let's go.
I think we all do.